I'm with Maureen Lake, and she's an advocate for women's health. In her work, she's found that anxiety, stress, thyroid problems, and all of the ways that these interconnect can affect women of all ages. Men too sometimes, but today we're focusing on women. She's helping to combat all this with her new book that's in progress right now. So hold tight for when that comes out. We'll let you know. She's thinking about how you can really understand your thyroid and access this information even if you've never looked into it before. So she goes into understanding your thyroid, the impact on women's health, and why we need to address this, and how it's different for us than for men when we talk about some of these outcomes of what the thyroid does. So you approach women's health a little bit differently than most because you go into this interconnection between the thyroid, stress, women's cycles, and even mindfulness routines and sleep and yoga nidra. So what are the common problems that you see with women as they come into this diagnosis with a thyroid problem, or they're starting to suspect that?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be talking to you today. Now, probably one of the biggest impacts that thyroid or Hashimoto's has on a woman in particular is this unbelievable fatigue.
Oh, goodness.
And
yes.
It's like the number one complaint. And just talking from personal experience, even though I'm past childbearing age, when I had my children, that first trimester, you're so slammed with just being so tired. That's really similar to the fatigue you feel when you have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's.
Wow.
So, given that you're fatigued and all of a sudden you're gaining weight and you're sluggish, you have brain fog, your hair is falling out. I mean, all of these different things are happening to you. All of a sudden you're losing your eyebrows, your skin is dry, and you're literally going crazy. You really do. And oftentimes you go to the doctor, they do one simple test, your TSH test, and you find out that it's normal. But oftentimes the majority of Western practitioners use a scale from the lab that is broader than the narrow scale that should be used to really identify and do some extra testing. So consequently, there's 1 in 8 women in America today are walking around with thyroid problems, and 50% of them don't even know it.
Wow.
There's something else wrong. So when I decided to dig into this, one of the first things that I recognized and heard from some of the clients that I work with is, like I mentioned, the fatigue. Yeah. And so how can you go about, rectifying that? And so that's one area that I really wanted to learn more about and dig into was sleep and our patterns of sleep. And also, like you mentioned, Yoga Nidra, which at the time I had never even heard of before.
Oh,
and
it's the best.
So enmeshed in it now. Yeah. It has really been a godsend for me. So.
Yeah. So these factors that women are finding when they come to you with that just extreme fatigue, like beginning of pregnancy level fatigue, and just aren't feeling well. What might it be if it's not the thyroid? Have you ever had these women find that it's not a thyroid problem? Or is that usually what we're talking?
Well, oftentimes it could truly be more anxiety related or maybe some mental health issues, or it could be some other autoimmune issues because we talk about hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's, but Hashimoto's is actually an autoimmune disease where your antibodies are attacking your thyroid. It's gone to war with your own body. And so it's one of the autoimmune disorders out there. And a lot of them, you have a lot of the same symptoms. So it's just hugely important to get the correct diagnosis so you can go about hopefully remediating it and getting it into remission. So, but the unfortunately, the symptoms mimic a lot of other things, chronic fatigue, like I said, other autoimmune disorders. So it's not normal to feel this way. So if you do, you really need to check it out with your healthcare provider and hopefully get a resolution to your problems.
Yeah.
And
you can't underscore that enough. That's don't feel terrible. Find out what's going on.
Exactly. Exactly. And one of the things that brought me to the doctor, other than this unbelievable fatigue, was when I was younger, I had a lot of panic attacks, and I kind of like felt like, oh, I outgrew them, and now they started to come back. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? What's with these panic attacks? Right. And a lot of it is attributed to my thyroid and stress levels and the anxiety that you're feeling because your endocrine system is kind of going wacky, and just your whole nervous system is a little out of kilter, or a lot out of kilter, and so you go around telling the world that, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's the code word for I'm really not feeling very good.
Yeah. So, but we assume it's normal, and
right.
don't make a big deal out of it.
Exactly. Because as time goes on, it does become your new normal.
Yeah.
I'm really tired by 3:00. I'll just have another Diet Coke and have another iced tea and power through until I go home.
Right.
And we live in a culture today where, oh gosh, women are so busy, and then if you're a working mother, you're even more busier, and it's a high-paced world, and we're all tired. We just are. But you get to a certain level of tired or fatigue, and it's not typical or normal.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I have talked to friends and women that I'm just around, clients, even students. These women are saying, I'm so tired. I'm always tired. And their chief thing that they wish that they could just wake up one day, a miracle has happened, and they have energy that lasts all day. And, a lot of them, I will say that my problem with tired is I jam too much into a day. So we need to sometimes look at the logical things about what's happening. But once you eliminate those logical things, you need to start scouting it out.
Right. We start to think that being tired is normal. It's like our new normal. But like in reality, women have more insomnia than men do. Our depression levels are higher than men. Even like the incidence of ADHD for women has increased almost 300% in the past decade. And so you have to kind of ask yourself, what's going on here? And why are we we're just taxing our system?
Yeah.
That's really when, I've always, for the past 5 years, I've been practicing meditation, but I have never taken a yoga class in my life. It's just something that I've never done.
Yeah.
I just hadn't done it. And then I started reading about Yoga Nidra, and through a series of events, I ended up finding a local studio in town that offered one class a week. And I thought, well, I'm just going to take it. And there's 8 people in there, men and women. And I took the class, and I started going faithfully. It made such a difference in my fatigue level. And that's how I kind of got involved in Yoga Nidra. I think, to sound kind of coin a phrase, I really think the universe put all these things in place for me to stumble across a flyer to figure out what in the world is this. And because I'm an educator by trade, I started doing all this research and reading about it. And as I started getting more involved and consistently going to this one class a week that was offered at this one studio, I started learning about it more and becoming a facilitator myself. And
awesome.
That's kind of how Yoga Nidra came into the picture of restorative health for women that are suffering from whatever the syndrome might be, but with fatigue being one of the symptoms.
Yeah. Could you do a little description of Yoga Nidra for those who have not been blessed enough to try it yet, and maybe what they would experience in the class? Because it's not like your typical yoga class with down dog and all that. It's very different.
It's very, and it really is more of a type of meditation.
Yeah.
And the thing that I really came to realize with it is, I used to think, I'm an anxious person. Obviously, if I've had panic attacks in the past,
me too.
More recent years, I do have this ability to get revved up. And so I used to think I'll just rest by going for a walk or riding a bike, or I'll just vegetate in front of the TV, or go to dinner with my friends. I considered that all kind of rest activities, but they're not. I mean, as long as we're actively doing, we're still stimulating our sympathetic nervous system, which controls our anxiety and our fight or flight part of our system.
Right.
And over time, when you're continually in that state, whether it's really active or you think it's more of a rest, that does cause anxiety to build up. So first of all, I mean, I had to really come to terms with that the way that I thought of rest isn't really rest at all. In that we need to be able to balance our nervous system and be able to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can keep them in balance. Right. And so what Yoga Nidra does is it really allows you to rest. And so, I mean, it's crazy. Like I didn't know what to expect really with my first session. And you go into a room and you lay down and you get all nice and comfortable, and you put a pillow under your head and a bolster under your knees, and you're laying on your back, and they give you a blanket and you get all warm and cozy.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, it's like, oh gosh, I'm probably going to go to sleep for the next, 30 minutes or whatever. And even though sleep is a great way to calm your parasympathetic nervous system, especially if you can get to the dream states, Yoga Nidra some people might fall asleep at first, but that's not the goal. Yeah, it's not the goal. Yeah. So you lie down, you listen to the person that's in charge of it, or you can do this at home and listen to an audio recording, and the voice, we'll just say voice, whether you're live or recording it, guides you through a series of relaxation. I call them events because it takes you through a series of different touch points in different areas to get into a deeper state of subconsciousness. And you typically start with an intention. So the intention could be different for everybody, or it could be a group intention if you're having difficulty, thinking of one. Yeah. But it's a sleep-based relaxation meditation technique, which is kind of like a mouthful for laying down and being guided through a meditation type activity that takes you through some basic steps of resting and just kind of a relaxation of your body. And like I said, some people do fall asleep, or some people might think they're asleep. But the key to really know the difference is if you wake up, like you think you're waking up right when the session ended, you really weren't asleep. You were so deep in your subconscious level of your mind that you were still listening to what someone was telling you as you were going through the activity, but you were waking up right at the end. So that's the key to know that you really didn't fall asleep. You actually got to.
That's a good tip. I've never heard that.
A much deeper level of your subconscious. But if you don't wake up at the end and someone has to it's time to get, then you know that you fell asleep.
And that's my instructor, my favorite one. She does a workshop once a month with Yoga Nidra. And she always tells us, if you try not to fall asleep, listen to my voice. But if you do, maybe your body needed sleep. So, then nobody's embarrassed because you will hear a snore or two. There's a snore or two around the room. And, yoga is already a place where nobody should ever be embarrassed. But it's very, she tells us it's helpful either way. If you do Yoga Nidra, which means yogic sleep, or if you sleep, it's totally fine.
Your body obviously really needed to get that sleep. And like I mentioned, sleep is still tying into your parasympathetic nervous system, and that's what you want for that balance. So, but it's just like you would be able to comment on, it's really powerful. Sorry.
It's okay. I have cats crawling around me. It's okay.
I mean, the research states that 45 minutes of Yoga Nidra, 30 to 45 minutes, is equivalent to 3 hours of restful sleep with dreams.
And I can attest to that, having, as a fellow anxious lady, going into Yoga Nidra and Usually we do restorative yoga before that, which is it's a yoga that's meant to balance your nervous system and really, help you relax. But coming out of there, I feel completely refreshed, and my only complaint would be my contacts are sticky from having my eyes closed. Everything else, you feel like you've had a nap, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty powerful, and it's just one of the tools that I use with my own wellness and working with other women, because like I said, you can send an audio recording if you wanted to, or do it as a group, but it's powerful, and it's really a good way to reduce your stress and anxiety, and just to kind of like reset everything. And the fact that you start off with an intention, and we hold the touchstone in our left hand as we're being guided through. And with any kind of meditation, your body loses temperature. So that's why the blanket makes you feel warmer and cozy. And it's important to have that, or a sweater, because if you don't, you really do get chilly, which is amazing to think that your body temperature is dropping as you're going deeper into your mind.
Even in the depths of summer, if you come in sweaty, like halfway through, you're going to be freezing. It's incredible how much you truly need the blanket as your body just relaxes. And it's not like when you go to bed where you wake up hot and you're kicking a leg out from the covers.
Yeah, you want the temperature to be as cold as possible.
Yeah, I mean,
in order to fall asleep.
You truly need to cover up, and it's a very even after all these years of doing it, it still comes out as sort of like a strange out-of-body experience, because you're listening to this voice guiding you through. So at least in our class, what we do is we do some type of relaxation technique. So with each area of your muscles, you scrunch them up and then you relax them. So we go up one side of the body, down the other side. Or you might have someone think about being really heavy or really light. And then it goes into kind of, now I'm not a practitioner. This is the only type of yoga I don't teach. It's pretty much. And it's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's sort of like a pattern with the visualization that you take them through. And it gets you deeper and deeper into the meditation. So once you do it one time, there's no mystery the next time. So there is a pattern to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And each instructor might be a little bit different in what they present that during that session. But the end result is really the same. And like you said, you come out of there just going, whoa, like you go in there really tired thinking, I'm going to fall asleep. I just know it. But you come out energized and just feeling like an inner peace.
Yeah. I mean, it's truly amazing.
It's the same as having like a really good night's sleep where you actually had dreams that you remember.
Yeah,
and you
good.
Get up that morning and you're like, oh, I felt like I just got the best night's sleep, but it's getting up after however long your session is. It could be 15 minutes, it could be an hour. Just feeling refreshed and rejuvenated.
Yeah, you just feel, once you come out of your sort of relaxed state, takes a moment, you feel really good. Now, you had mentioned that women get insomnia more than men. And after about 30, sometimes like once a month, I just won't sleep one night. No good reason. Just how do we, since apparently that's a reality after 30 for women. And if it hasn't hit you yet, it's coming for you. It's how do you help your clients work through that? Do you just accept the insomnia, or what do we do?
Well, so much of it as women, and we have our cycles, and our cycles go along with the moon, and it's all related. And so you could probably ask anybody if there's a full moon and you have difficulty sleeping and you're a woman, the answer is going to be yes.
Interesting.
And
I'll have to start tracking that.
You should. I mean, it is pretty impactful to think that our cycles and the cycle of just the world and where we live are all tied together to us biologically. Cool. And knowing that, I mean, I think keeping a sleep diary is a wonderful idea, so you can track your own patterns. But on those certain days, especially if you do see a pattern over time, those might be the evenings that you take like a wonderful warm bath, with Epsom salts and baking
Yeah.
soda, and put some lavender in there and soak in the bath right before you crawl into bed. Just different techniques that can help you sleep on the nights that you kind of anticipate some restlessness is huge. And a lot of women sleep better in a colder room.
Yeah, I do.
And
it's like a meat locker in our house. We love it.
I know. It's like I crank the air conditioning down at night, and my husband's like, and we're doing this because I'm like, so I can sleep,
Well, and I'm like, I'll do that. And then I have on a sweatshirt and sweatpants. And I'm like, I want to be cozy.
Right.
Cozy, man.
Yeah, you're right. You'll be under the covers.
Yeah.
On and do all these crazy things. But I mean, our hormones play such a huge part in everything, but especially in our sleep patterns. And so like, if you're heading into perimenopause or into menopause, all those things are going to disrupt your sleep, or just even having your monthly period. And, there's just an ebb and flow to our monthly cycle, no matter what age you are. And unfortunately, sleep is impacted by that. So I do think, keeping a diary, just keeping a journal, seeing, oh gosh, it's like this day of the month, I know I'm going to have a little difficulty. Yeah. Let's do these extra things.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I do track my sleep. I track everything. I'm a data nerd. My research background just doesn't leave. And my Fitbit, it's the Aria. I just wear this all the time. You wear it to bed and it tracks your sleep for you. So when you're restless, when you wake up, and, the nights where obviously I don't sleep, it would be interesting to match it up with the cycle, with the moon, with all these other factors to see if there is something in common. And for those of you who are not data nerds like me and aren't collecting all that, maybe just if you tend to see a pattern just like overall, overarching, you can get an idea and prepare for it. I like your idea of when you know that it's coming, you just do extra measures to relax.
Yeah, just do a few extra things. And I mean, I have like, my little thing too that keeps track of my sleep at night and how many times I wake up. And I historically will wake up at 3:00 in the morning.
Yes.
Sometime around 3 a.m. to 3:15.
Yes, me too.
And then when I had my adrenals tested for when my thyroid was tested, I had this surge of cortisol right around that time. And I'm like, well, there you go. So there's a real reason for that. And so I make sure like at night, even though I rarely snack on anything after I have dinner, but I will take just a little bit of protein at night, whether it's just a lot of times I just eat a little thing of turkey or whatever. Yeah. And that helps me get through the night cycle of that cortisol surge. So,
cortisol, the answer is always cortisol. With anything funky in your body, it's cortisol. And that's for those who have not maybe seen some of the other sessions about cortisol. It's okay. For some of you who might not have seen the other sessions about cortisol, that's the stress hormone where you need a certain amount of it. It's good up until a certain threshold where it starts to affect you negatively. And it's not like it's negative that it surges in the middle of the night. That's just you. And apparently me too. That's 3:00. I don't know what it is. It's 3:00.
That's one of the powers of like keeping data. Even if you only do it for like 3 weeks or 2 weeks or however long you can stand to do it, you'll see patterns that'll arise that you'll be able to problem solve and just think, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Now I can do this to maybe combat it a little bit, or at least feel like you have some control over it.
Yes.
That's what I think is just so powerful. Is like, you know what? I'm just going to nip this in the bud right now. And then psychologically you kind of do. So,
and I hope everybody's noticing that it doesn't keep coming back to a scary diagnosis. It doesn't keep coming back to you have a thyroid problem. I mean, shoot, you may have eaten too late. Or in my husband's case, every time he eats the spicy chicken wings when we go out with our friends on Thursday, he can't sleep on Thursday night. And each day is like, oh yeah. So you might be eating spicy chicken wings. It could be something tiny too. So don't panic from this discussion.
The other thing that's just like huge for a lot of women is like having a glass of wine with dinner.
Yeah.
totally disrupt your sleeping. Like you'll
Uh-huh.
get sleepy and fall asleep, and then all of a sudden you're awake
Oh
and
my
you're like,
gosh,
well, wait a
yes.
minute. I'm like, what brought this on? It was the wine or
Yep.
whatever you drank that night. But alcohol's another huge, and everybody,
Yes.
metabolizes that differently. And so you
Mm-hmm.
wake up maybe at a different time. But
Yeah.
pretty much the sugar that's in it is going to rev up your system and you're going to wake up. So,
I remember back in my way more fun days in my early 20s, I could go out partying until late, late night, and I'd be up at 7 the next morning. I am good to go. Let's go to the gym. And it it has to have been that it was always 7 a.m. Bam, I'm up and I'm ready to go. And I thought maybe I was just magic, but it sounds like that's, like you're saying, we just metabolize things differently.
mhm,
These days, no. A glass
right.
of wine at dinner, I need to take Tums afterwards. Being in your 30s is so cool. These
You're still
horrible things
so young.
happen to the young women out there. Just horrible things are coming your way.
Oh,
Now, what are some of the other things we can do to alleviate, even if you do have a thyroid problem that you're dealing with? So let's say you get diagnosed, you start taking your medication, but you're still having some of these symptoms. What are some other ways you recommend for people to alleviate just some of those, like an autoimmune disease type of symptoms that are kind of annoying throughout the day? The dry skin, the hair loss, these things that just really weigh on you.
yeah, they do, especially hair loss. I mean, there's nothing worse than cleaning out your shower drain every morning and just like, oh my God,
Oh,
how much more can I lose? Um, well, there's really two things I'd speak to that, and one is like just becoming an advocate for yourself and your own health.
I like that.
A lot of times, a full battery of lab work hasn't been
Mm-hmm.
done yet when you first get your diagnosis, and so I would really check with your medical provider to
Yeah.
see or request that your iron is checked,
Mm-hmm.
your ferritin level is checked, your B12, just certain key indicators.
Yeah.
Make sure your antibodies have been checked along with
Yeah.
your T3 and T4 because it's the elevation in
Mm-hmm.
antibodies that's going to give you the Hashimoto's
Yeah.
diagnosis, which will put you into the autoimmune category.
Now, are those in the normal lab test battery that you get each year for your physical? So those are outside of it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, those are outside of it. And even your TSH can be quote unquote normal,
Yeah.
and everything else can be not normal. And
Oh.
that's why it's just so important. Like if you're, if you check out the symptoms and you have a lot of these symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm like, be your own advocate and just
Yeah.
tell your doctor, can I just have this done? And if they tell you no, maybe go to another doctor, or there's plenty of labs
Yeah.
out there that you can have your own testing done on your own.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's my first suggestion
That's a
because
good suggestion too.
especially if your ferritin level is low, that's usually why
Mm-hmm.
your hair is falling out.
Really? And
One of the main
is that something that can be corrected? Even from that, it's just demoralizing to feel crappy and then you start losing your hair. Can that
isn't
be
that the truth?
corrected?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
All you need to take basically, you need to work with your diet, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but until you bring your levels up, is you take an iron supplement. And
Okay.
again,
Yeah.
your physician will know the right type for you
Yeah.
because there's different types. And then the other thing is your diet. I mean, your diet and your gut health is so key to your autoimmune or your thyroid or
Right.
whatever really difficulty you're having. It's just so tied into, as I know you know.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of people will have gluten sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar causes a lot of problems. Dairy causes a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the key things that we love to eat.
Yeah, the good
high
stuff.
carbs, processed foods. Exactly. A lot of that really good stuff you have to take a look at and see what you can reduce or even
Yeah.
possibly eliminate. And that
Yeah.
will really go far in helping with your symptoms, especially fatigue.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's true.
And we're all different. Like, I'm like a billy goat. I can eat anything. I could eat tin cans and it wouldn't bother me. But some people are more sensitive. And There are things like I did a food sensitivity test just for fun back when I worked at a gym, and it was half price. And I found out I
Mhm.
had a sensitivity to egg yolks and yeast, of all things. Did that stop me
Interesting.
from
Yeah.
eating either of those? No. But sometimes you find out some weird stuff.
You do.
It's kind of fun to do just to see. And, so you have an idea of what you're working with. Now,
Right.
often insurance doesn't pay for that type of test. So just be forewarned.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, just be
Yeah.
forewarned. But
Yeah. And
that's,
I truthfully, one of the main things I eliminated early on was gluten,
mm,
mainly because my son is gluten sensitive. And so it was so easy just to like
yeah,
incorporate it across the board instead of just like for him.
yeah.
And my husband and I both lost 15 pounds in 1 month by
Wow, that's a
eliminating gluten
lot.
from our diet. Yeah. I mean, and that's a lot
Wow.
for considering the fact I was gaining like 10 pounds a month
Oh my
for no
God.
reason whatsoever because, it ended up being my thyroid. But
Wow.
just that one key change was
Yeah.
instrumental in changing. It was inflammation. I
Yeah.
mean, it was, we would be running to the bathroom,
Yeah.
urinating for weeks because we were like cleaning our system out by just
Yeah.
eliminating gluten. It sounds crazy, but we obviously must have some kind of
Yeah.
sensitivity to it that we weren't aware of. So,
Yeah. And, gluten-free has become the new fat-free and the new low carb from the past. So some
right.
people truly are sensitive, like Maureen and her
Hmm.
family. A lot of people are not truly sensitive, so you don't need to be concerned. Just give it a try. See
Yeah,
how,
exactly.
it might be for you. I mean, remember, the 15 pounds is not fat loss. Remember, she said
Right.
it's inflammation. So that's how you
And we were
know.
running to the bathroom,
Yes.
for
So you
first
will
week.
know.
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, exactly. And I was also addicted to Diet Coke. And
Yeah, that's
I
my one
did
vice
do
I have
that.
left.
Yeah. But that artificial sweetener,
Yeah,
I mean, I was retaining a lot of fluid because
yeah,
of that for me. It was causing that for me.
yeah,
So that was a key piece for my health as well was,
yeah.
it's hard to give up those things we're addicted to, but
So good.
this,
I love it.
sometimes it makes a difference. I know. And
Yeah.
it's so addicting and so delicious and I
Hmm.
still miss it.
I know it's
So,
hard. But,
mhm,
it's because our bodies are so different. You have to be not only that advocate for yourself, but also a little bit of a detective. Experiment on yourself a little bit. I mean, I would not start diagnosing yourself. That's what
no,
people with medical degrees do. And, don't start any crazy supplementation without talking to your doctor. But
right.
start to experiment a little bit. Like, shoot, that's the best gluten intolerance experiment I've ever heard. I mean, talk about you don't even need to go get tested with those results. That's not normal to feel
Right.
that way afterwards.
Exactly.
And
Not normal at
that's
all, but
incredible.
yeah, it was something that was definitely affecting
Yeah.
us and feel so much better.
Yeah, and sometimes a sensitivity is serious like that. Now I
Hmm.
mean, it's not celiac sensitivity, but it's enough that your body was clearly affected. So even if it's something that is bothering you enough that your body feels that much better afterwards. Like, I had mentioned that yeast was one of my sensitivities. For me, what happens with that is simply heartburn. So it's not like tragic if I have a yeasty donut, because how often do you eat those? But
Right.
sometimes if it's a part of your daily diet that's you're sensitive to it, man, you could really be feeling terrible for something that's easy to fix.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
And there's so
that's
many
amazing.
delicious gluten-free
Oh yeah,
alternatives
there's a
now
ton of
that it's
stuff.
no big deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's no big
there's
deal at all.
a ton of options. And that's true of other things that you're sensitive to. I mean, finally, the vegans have spoken and there are more dairy free options out there. So there are
Hmm.
plenty of things you can try. You can make a milk out of just about anything these days. And,
Exactly.
you can, other that they have not mastered cheese, but
I think
other, other than
just gonna
cheese,
say that. Yeah.
yeah, that one's not there yet. But
Yeah.
just about everything else, even dairy free is not really that hard. And there are a ton of resources I just saw on Pinterest yesterday. A whole dairy free section of the internet with these great ideas. So,
Hmm.
you know, you can work around something that's bothering you, and crappy is not normal. You don't need to feel
Right.
that way. Now,
Yeah, that's the thing just to keep in mind is the way that if you're feeling bad, get it checked out.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously a reason, because you're not supposed to feel that way. You're not supposed to feel worn out, and being worn out isn't sustainable. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're gonna drop eventually.
Now, what else have you found in all of your research for your book? You've probably found a ton of good tidbits out there too.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, oh gosh, I mean, you can kind of go crazy with everything, but there's like just environmentally so many things that the way that our lives are now that affect you physically, whether obviously you're drinking water or our skin is our biggest organ, and the stuff that we're putting on our skin and gets absorbed and goes into our bloodstream. Just some of those things are, like I said, you can take it to the nth degree, but a lot of it too is really important to know.
Yeah.
Pesticides that you're using in your yard and gosh, you name it. There's so many things just to be aware of, and just become like, again, like your own best advocate.
Yeah. And
that's my best advice.
With all the wonders of modern life, things have changed too. So we need to be paying attention and giving ourselves feedback about our health as the world around us has changed. And it's not like they have a bunch of test subjects saying, I don't feel so great. You should look into that. So you need to be diligent and aware of how you're feeling and how your environment might be affecting you. Even from, if you, gosh, I mean, Maureen and I live in two extremely different climates. I live in DC where you can pretty much like scoop up the humidity. And she's in Denver where it's the opposite. And when I visit, I have asthma. And when I visit my family out in Colorado, or we go up in the mountains to ski, I need to bring my inhaler. And even noticing those tiny factors like humidity in the air, or, how that affects you. Even those things that aren't like environmental dangers that we need to worry about. Even down to that, you need to just pay attention to how you're feeling, because likely you can solve the problem.
Right. And it's great that you know that, so that you do bring your inhaler. So, if you did have some kind of crisis, you have your inhaler with you. When we go back east to visit family, I'm like dying because
it's a
the
change.
air is so thick.
It's so different. I know. When our family comes to visit from Denver, they get out here like, ugh. Even in the dead of winter, they're just like, ugh. It's funny how even your environment where there's nothing wrong with it, we're not talking about like pollution even, your environment can affect how you feel too. So
right.
Even down to that.
I apologize for my dogs.
It's okay. Never apologize for cute pets. We don't mind that around here. I bet there are a lot of listeners out there who have dogs and cats and bunnies and all sorts of things crawling around them now. My cats are asleep on my feet right now on the floor. I'm like wearing cat slippers. So if we were to take away one thing that we could do today to best assess our health and how we feel and start being advocates for ourselves, what would you recommend?
I would recommend keeping a journal.
Okay.
And
like
just start like documenting maybe times a day that you feel a certain way, or what you ate for dinner and how you slept that night. I mean, whatever difficulty you might be having, just start tracking it and seeing what is occurring before and after. That would be my biggest advice, because when you go to a doctor and you're going with a lot of like nebulous kind of symptoms, which, a lot of different difficulties are just like, oh, I can't sleep and I'm this, I'm that. And a lot of doctors will just kind of blow you off, unfortunately.
But sometimes that's life.
Right. It's like, well, you are stressed. You're a working mother, and you're raising 3 kids, and you're doing this and you're doing that. What do you expect, kind of thing? And I remember I was told, well, try yoga. Why don't you try yoga? And so that's how I kind of researched and fell into Yoga Nidra. But if I didn't have documentation to look like, well, I've been tracking this and this is what I'm finding, otherwise they might not have taken me seriously.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest advice is if you're suspecting things or you're feeling different and you don't really know why, keep a journal, keep a log, write
Yeah.
down how you're feeling, what you're eating, what you're drinking,
Yeah. That's
how
great
stressful your
advice.
day might have been. So
Yeah, that's excellent advice. It helps you figure things out. And if you were to see your physician, gosh, even a nutritionist or anybody else, anyone in allied healthcare, they don't know more than what you tell them and what they can observe right there. So it's really
right,
helpful for them to be able to take that information from you and use that as really like a shortcut to a diagnosis or at least to an idea of what's going on. So it's helpful
yeah.
all around with your health. I think it's a great suggestion.
Well, thank you. And oftentimes too, you go to your physician and like you're drawing a blank, right?
Yes.
Like all of a sudden you can't remember
Yes.
anything. So it just helps with that too.
Definitely. And you don't
Like
feel
credibility.
well. Yeah, it's great. Perfect example. So if you have any sort of thing where you don't feel as good as you think or as just peppy and energetic as you would expect you would, anything you might find, start tracking. I think Maureen has the best idea for that because you can start to see patterns. So thank you for that advice, thank you for everything, and best of luck writing your book. I know that's
Oh, thank you.
stressful. So thank you for being with us.